First, thank you for letting me share. I do acknowledge the 3-minute time limit, and I will be respectful of that. I would like to request the board's permission if I could have an additional 1 minute 30 seconds just to run through quickly the documents I want to provide the board.
All right, why don't you, before you start, we won't count it again.
Okay, so the first document goes into detail about a well-known term in academia called response to intervention. It is a multi-tiered approach to learning. Struggling learners are provided with interventions at increasing levels of intensity to accelerate their rate of learning. It has to be implemented with fidelity, and the components needed are a high-quality, scientifically based classroom instruction, ongoing student assessments, and tiered instruction that differentiates instruction across all students, and parent involvement. Tier 1 is where the high-quality classroom's instruction begins. 80% of the kids will fall into that category. When they begin to struggle, they're pushed into Tier 2, where it's targeted interventions. Those with greater skill deficits and learning disabilities are moved into Tier 3, which has more intensive interventions. The document, the single copy, the memorandum from the United States.
You don't have to go through it speedy.
Well, I'm trying to adhere to my 1 minute, 30 seconds.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
We're respectful of that.
The United.
I want you to deep breath so you don't have to feel.
Well, I got my 3-minute speech and I got my 1 minute 30 seconds.
Okay.
The memorandum from the United States Department of Education goes into greater detail of reiterates what RTI is. The single copy of the studies on studies that were done on reading programs with intellectual disabilities. It illustrates a positive trend in those kids that are on research-based reading programs with intellectual disabilities. The next document, if you guys can look at that, this is important. This is a reading program framework by provider Wilson Language Training. This yellow column here is their reading program foundations. It is for K through 3, and it is for K through 3 students, and it is specific to Tier 1 and Tier 2. If you move over here to the blue, this is specific to Tier 3. It is Wilson Reading System is the name of that program. The very next, this document here goes into greater detail of that Tier 3 program called Wilson Reading System. Okay, thank you. It'll help you better understand when I share.
Okay, no, that's perfect. So you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, you need to take some water, drink some water?
Yes, I will, thank you.
Sure. So before we start the time, if you could introduce yourself to
Yes,
everybody
thank you, I'm
first,
sorry.
so that you do that.
My name is Christy Conradi. And what my name is really not important. I'm really here to raise up the kids with learning disabilities and special needs. They are the ones I'm here for and are most important. Okay, 3 minutes?
Okay, you got your 3 minutes. Thank you.
This is our family experience at this nationally recognized school of inclusion. Kindergarten. My son entered with a diagnosis of legal blindness and orthopedic impairment, 2 low incident disabilities that affect less than 1% of K through 12 students. 2nd grade. My son spent much of the year in the bathroom, prompted by teachers, not him. He was pulled during instruction every hour and would then go watch his iPad. An IEE report gives witness to this. That same year, I was met with constant resistance when trying to exercise my right under the Every Child Succeeds law to observe and volunteer inside the classroom of my severely disabled son. My attorney filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights. In 3rd grade, after 2 legal due process complaints, my legally blind son would finally receive vision services. Result, 7-second reduction in response time, an increase in accuracy. My son was illiterate until the summer of 2019. He would be going to the 3rd grade. I gave up on the school and took training in an IMSE Orton-Gillingham Tier 3 evidence-based reading program. Result, my son was reading in 5 weeks' time, just as research indicates. As recent as November of this school year, I learned that the reading program at this school is Foundations under provider Wilson Language Training. My shock, Foundations is only for Tier 1 and Tier 2 kids, those with little academic struggle. Tier 3 kids with learning disabilities never had a chance on that program. The result would be illiteracy, just like my son. The Tier 3 program called Wilson Reading System is not available here. The lead administrator of this school is Wilson Reading certified and would have complete knowledge of this tiered programming. Chime's petition for renewal also indicates that appropriate response to intervention would occur here for Tier 1, 2, and yes, even Tier 3. This was no accident. The school invests in one-time purchases of adaptive playgrounds and accessible parking signs. I was misled into believing my son would be taught to learn to read too. Little has changed for the disabled in over 50 years. What happened here is no different than what happened in the 1950s when a group of Negro children were allowed into a white school. The white folks stood around and gave themselves a big old pat on the back saying, "Didn't we do a great thing here?" But the test scores of the black kids remained low. Still, these kids would suffer from the bigotry of low expectations. Do your due diligence, investigate academic interventions at this school. An evidence-based program requires a specific protocol be followed with fidelity, or the trail of evidence indicating success has been broken. Forcing a Tier 1 program like Foundations onto a Tier 3 child is a fail. The evidence for Foundations does not indicate success for the learning disabled, so they will remain illiterate and continue to struggle. What checks and balances are in place to supervise the decisions of the administration? For this was no accident. These kids did not fail us, but we continue to fail them. I hear almost daily a whisper in my ear that asks, "Will you speak for them? Those considered least in society?" Yes, I will. But how is the board going to respond?
Thank you, Christy, very much. We'll have to go through this, and we appreciate you coming to the
Thank you
board.
very much.
And I